Hey guys, and welcome back. It's Grant Broggi from the Strength Coach, and today I want to talk about assistance exercises. Which ones are useful and do you need them? If you like the video, like and subscribe to the channel. First of all, I want to say thanks for getting us almost to 30,000 subscribers. That's right, 30,000. We're almost there. I think we just crossed 29. So again, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I bring that up because this question came from one of our subscribers. They shot us an email. They said, Grant, thanks for the awesome YouTube content. I have a question. Assistance exercises. Should I do them? Straight leg deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts, incline bench press, decline bench press. He listed them all and on, and I thought, well, you know what? It's time we covered this topic. If you are one of those almost 30,000 subscribers, then you know the majority of this channel is about the basic barbell lifts for general strength. This isn't the stretch-mediated hypertrophy channel. This isn't the, hey, I want to deadlift 1,000 pounds channel. No, this is you are a normal man or woman. Yes, we have some women subscribers. If you're a female and you haven't subscribed, do it now. This isn't the 100-mile race long endurance channel, although we do recommend you have a base of cardio. Go see the thing about the 1 mile time. Go see the thing about if cardio will kill your gains. You need to be able to move around and not be a fat piece of lard. So while general strength with the basic barbell lifts is generally what we talk about, you see what I did there? We do want to talk about assistance exercises. Now, first of all, we need to talk about what is an assistance exercise. Well, let's just get right into the name of it. It assists. What does it assist? It assists what we would call the big four. No, I'm not talking about your CO, XO, battery gunny, and first sergeant, although that's important too. Semper Fi, double dogs. No, I'm talking about the big four barbell lifts: the squat, the bench press, the press, and the deadlift. If you've paid any attention as to why we think these should be the big four, it's because they use the most muscle mass over the longest effective range of motion. And if you're using a barbell, they're easily scalable, meaning if you're just getting started, you can use very light weights. If you're very strong, you can use very heavy weights, especially if you have the thin cast iron plates from the Strength Coach, or even now our thinner bumpers. So back to assistance exercises. What is the point of them? The point of them is to drive up the big four. We know if you're just getting started and you are a novice, that each time you come to the gym, you can add 5 pounds or maybe 2.5 for the upper body exercises every time you step foot in the gym. But as you get stronger, your rate of adaptation goes down. Watch our stress recovery adaptation video. If you haven't seen that, you need to have an understanding of what's happening to your body each time you lift weights. So when things start to stall, we may add in some assistance work. While I do think this is an important topic, I don't want you to go off and start doing all these crazy exercises tomorrow. I have found that most people can stick with the big four lifts, maybe with the addition of chins or barbell rows or something like that, but they don't need to go down a far rabbit hole with chains and bands and Bosu balls. No, they can keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. But let me give you a couple instances where I think assistance exercises can be useful. The first one might be in the case of the deadlift. If you're running the program Starting Strength, you know that the deadlift is going to get the heaviest, the fastest for most people, and it'll be so heavy relative to your body weight, most likely, that you will not be able to recover session to session. So you might be thinking to yourself, got it, Grant, the chin-ups, an assistance exercise. I alternate the deadlift with the chin-ups each time I lift. Not really. While the chins can be used as a substitute for the deadlift so that you're not deadlifting so heavy every single session, it's actually not an assistance exercise to the way that we might need to think about it. When I do chins instead of deadlifting, what I'm really doing is just managing my overall stress so that my deadlift can recover. Do the chins help your deadlift? Sure. You're still using your lats and your biceps and your arms and things that you use in the deadlift, but it's a little bit different. A more succinct or a more fitting assistance exercise for the deadlift might be a rack pull, a halting deadlift, a pause deadlift, a Romanian deadlift, a straight leg or stiff leg deadlift. These things mimic the movement, the primary movement, the deadlift that we're trying to build because we know that's what gets us the strongest, but provide some variation, one in load because of the nature of those movements. They use less muscle mass, but particularly they allow us to train the weak part of the lift. Rack pulls are probably the most commonly seen in the starting strength community. I've done rack pulls myself. I'm not a huge rack pull fan. I think there is a small population of people that can get the deadlift above their knee and then fail, but most of the time I see the problems off of the floor itself. But if you find yourself in that category, a rack pull basically shortens the range of motion. Instead of the bar starting on the floor and then you having to produce force the entire way up until you reach lockout, the bar can start just below the knee and then be locked out. You're working the top half of the lift. What does that mean? It means that you can probably train that lift heavier. What's the idea there? The idea is I can deadlift off the floor and get it to my knee and then I fail. So I'm going to overload the portion that I'm bad at from the knee to lockout. If you want to train the rack pull, that's a great movement to rotate in. So you might deadlift heavy on week 1 on a Wednesday, and then the following Wednesday, you might you might rack pull even heavier than your deadlift. And the following week, you may come back to your deadlifts. You see what we're doing there? We're rotating this exercise in to train the weak point. The halting deadlift is the same idea. I'm overloading the bottom portion of the lift, the portion that is stuck off the floor. I'm getting set, I'm pushing my feet into the floor, the bar comes up to just above the knee, and then instead of going to lockout, I bring the bar right back down. Again, I think this is a small percentage of the population that needs to rotate in rack pulls and halting deadlifts, but if you find your deadlift stuck at either one of those parts of the lift, you can do it. Now, let's talk about some other ones that work a little bit differently, like the stiff or the straight leg deadlift. If you follow the 5-step deadlift setup, the only difference with the SLDL, as it's written in your logbook, is you don't drop your shins to the bar. Many new lifters do this on accident. They just set up incorrectly with very vertical shins, and then they miss out on quads off of the floor, which is what you should be using to get the deadlift going. But if you're a more advanced lifter and you need to pull multiple sets of deadlift or have multiple deadlift sessions across a week, the straight leg or the stiff leg deadlift is a great option, because by removing that knee bend, that shin angle, you take the quads out of the lift, making it more low back and hamstring and glute dominant, so that you just don't have those quads to break it off the floor. Because of this, it's going to be with less weight, which means it's not going to be as heavy as your top set of 5, or it's not going to be like the rack pull or the halting where it's overloaded. Because you're removing some muscle mass, you're going to be able to do less total weight, which means it's less total stress, which means you might be able to pull more sets or more volume in your session. I like for people to use stiff leg deadlifts maybe as a back off after a heavy triple or single in their deadlift session, or as another pulling day. So maybe you're pulling twice a week. You're deadlifting heavy on day 2, and then on day 3 after, say, intensity squats where you've only done a couple sets with very little reps but very high weights, you pull, say, 3 sets of 5 with a stiff leg deadlift. I know you're going to ask, so I'll tell you, your stiff leg deadlift is somewhere about 80% of your deadlift. So if you're deadlifting 405 by 5, you might stiff leg deadlift somewhere around 80 pounds off of that, 315, 325, something like that for multiple sets across. The Romanian deadlift, similar to the stiff leg deadlift in that you're removing some muscle mass so that you're not training as heavy as you are, say, in the deadlift. It starts at the top. The Romanian deadlift starts at the top. Remember this, doesn't start off the floor like the straight leg deadlift. It starts at the top so you get a long eccentric range of motion out of the hamstring as you perform the lift. Pause deadlifts, useful assistance exercise for people that struggle to maintain low bar back extension. If they go and they set their back in the deadlift, and then as soon as they drive it off the floor, the back starts to round, you can have them do a pause deadlift a couple inches off the ground where they get there and they hold that really mechanically disadvantageous position and then continue the lift. For some reason, if you're struggling with back pain, it also seems to be useful there just to do a pause deadlift with light weight. I think you're just holding that contraction there right off the floor, which is working the low back. It can seem to alleviate some back pain. The list goes on and on with assistance or variations of the main lifts. Take the bench press, for example. You can do the incline bench. You can do the decline bench. You can do the dumbbell bench press. There's a bunch of things that can make your bench press continue to go up if you get bored. You can change your grip width. You can go to a wider grip on the bench press. You can go to a close grip bench press. None of these assistance exercises are bad. I just don't want you to go down a hole of doing a bunch of assistance work when what you really need to do is add 5, not be a wimp, and not miss a session in the gym. The list goes long in the squats as well. You could do pause squats where you go down to the bottom, come to a complete stop. This can be useful for people that have their knees moving around too much. Simply by stopping and slowing down the lifts, they can control where their knees are. This can be useful for people that struggle to drive their hips out of the bottom because they go down to the bottom, they come to a complete stop, and it's going to be harder out of the hole. The pause squat is going to be a little bit less weight than your regular squat. The box squat is going to make you sit way back and stretch out the hamstrings again. Your knees won't travel quite as far forward, and it's another variation or assistance of the squat. You can do a pin squat where you go down, the bar comes to a complete stop on the pins, similar to a pause squat, and then you drive it up out of the hole. You can do a front squat, which brings your back angle more vertical, which is going to take take your hips out of the movement. It's going to make it more quad dominant. It can be used as a light day variation. God forbid you do a high bar back squat. Similar thing happening with the front squat, a more vertical back angle than the low bar back squat. In the overhead press, you can do a push press. Yes, you can bend your knees, use your quads, and lock the bar out. What does this do? Well, it really just helps you lock out a heavier load than you are used to. You can do a pin press where the bar starts right at your forehead and you strain against that tough spot, similar to a pause deadlift. And again, work out the top position of the press. You can do a strict press versus a press 2.0 versus a double layback. You're going to break your spine and die starting strength press. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But again, we're going to keep it simple. But I know you watch this video, you're however many minutes in and you're like, Grant, which ones do you do? Truth be told, I don't do that many of them ever. Occasionally, if I'm training really hard, maybe for a powerlifting meet, I might put some of these in to work on weak points. But in general, I find do the big lifts and train them consistently and you'll be just fine. But I do program some of them, so I'll tell you my favorite assistance lifts. For the squat, I like the pause squat. I think it's king over all of them. Unless I'm training around an injury for someone or something like that, pause squats are going to be really the only thing that you see added in for a squat variation. Doesn't mean these other ones that I mentioned are bad, but the pause squat is useful. You come to a complete stop, it feels really heavy out of the hole, and it can help you when you continue to add weights to your squat that are not paused. For the bench press, I like the close grip bench press. You bring your hands in, it loads a little bit more tricep. I think it has good carryover for the regular bench and for the press. So again, if I'm trying to drive up my big four lifts, I think the close grip bench press is a useful assistance exercise that complements both of those. If you want to do dumbbell bench press and you want to do dumbbell flies and you want to do incline bench press, go for it. I'm just talking about what I use for my lifters. For the overhead press, really the only one that I use is the pin press. I think that's the most useful. People tend to get stuck somewhere around their eyeballs to the top of their scalp. Women tend to fail on the press a little bit earlier than men. I generally have females use a pin press more than I do males, but I think that a pin press is the best assistance exercise to keep your press moving up. And for the deadlift, while I've done a little bit of all of these, again, I stand by if you want your deadlift to be strong, you need to deadlift off the floor. I'm not saying you rack pullers are bad people. I'm just saying I think it's used a little bit too much. Train your normal deadlift. If you need to get some more volume in or add in a second session, I like the straight leg deadlift. I think it's a very useful tool for people that are trying to build their deadlift, and it works great as an additional volume day exercise. Barbell rows, power cleans, chin-ups, you'll see me incorporate into lifting programs. You'll see me do them myself, but generally, like I said earlier, that is to give you a break from heavy pulls so that you can recover from that session. I also think you can do chin-ups every single session. I tend to do them at the end of every single session, no matter what I do. Things will vary. If I only squat and press, I might be able to do sets of 15, sets of 16. If I just pulled a heavy set of 5 deadlift with some back off sets, my chin-up numbers may go down. So don't stress out if your chins fluctuate, but I think doing chins every single session is a good thing to put in your program. So there you have it. YouTuber subscriber number 29,428 or whatever number you were. Thanks for the question. Assistance exercises, who should use them, when you should use them, why you should use them. Hope the video helps. If it does, like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.